At 9 o'clock sharp on a Saturday morning, the wooden front door of Walter's single-story ranch-style house creaked open. Clara carried 2 large paper grocery bags inside. The bags held low-sodium soup prescribed by the doctor, topical ointment for his aching knees, and sugar-free oatmeal cookies, his favorite snack. 5 years prior, Clara's mother had passed away from a sudden heart attack, and every Saturday without fail, Clara came to look after her father. Rain or shine, she never missed a single visit. Walter turned 82 that year. For 40 years, he had worked heavy assembly jobs at auto parts factories, leaving him with severe arthritis in his knees that flared up badly after long walks or standing for extended stretches. Still, his mind remained sharp, his memory unclouded and his judgment fully intact. Every Sunday afternoon, he sat alone at the wooden dining table to balance his personal bank accounts by hand, refusing to rely on digital banking tools he did not fully trust. All property deeds for his 2 homes, long-term savings certificates, durable medical power of attorney paperwork, and his original signed last will were locked securely inside a heavy steel floor safe bolted firmly to the concrete ground inside his master bedroom closet. The cabinet's thick metal construction meant ordinary household tools could not shift or crack it without deliberate, forceful prying. Clara was 56 years old, a fully certified public accountant working at a stable accounting firm located in the suburban commercial district outside the small town. She maintained a consistent 9-to-5 work schedule, held comprehensive employer-sponsored health insurance, owned her own small townhouse outright with no remaining mortgage balance, and carried 0 personal debt of any kind. Every Saturday morning, she wrapped up any minor leftover administrative tasks from the workweek before driving 30 minutes across town to reach her father's residence. Once there, she cleaned every bathroom thoroughly, trimmed and edged the overgrown front lawn, and restocked all his prescription medications month after month, covering every single related expense entirely out of her own personal funds. Over those 5 consecutive years of regular caretaking, she had never once asked her father for any amount of cash, nor had she voluntarily brought up the sensitive topic of his asset division and inheritance plans unprompted by him first. Her sole, quiet wish was simple, for her elderly father to live out his remaining golden years in complete peace, free from trivial household labor and constant financial stress. Clara's older brother Richard was 59, 3 full years her senior. For nearly his entire adult life, he had bounced aimlessly between temporary construction labor, warehouse sorting shifts, and short-distance delivery routes, never securing a single full-time position he could hold down for longer than 12 months at a time. He visited his aging father extremely infrequently. It was not unusual for half a year to pass between his knocks on Walter's front door. Every solitary time he left the house after a visit, he walked away with several $100s in cash Walter had withdrawn from his wallet specifically for him. The person constantly crafting fabricated hardship stories and pushing Richard to beg for repeated handouts from the elderly man was his wife Linda. Linda had perfected the manipulative art of performing heartfelt victimhood at every major family gathering, including Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners attended by all extended relatives. Each holiday, she would break into manufactured, glistening tears and ramble at length about their imagined financial ruin. Their grandson Tyler's vehicle loan payments were months overdue with late fees stacking up. The shingled roof of their small rental home leaked badly after every rainstorm, yet they could not afford professional repair crews. And minor outpatient medical visits for small illnesses racked up thousands of dollars in unexpected bills they claimed they could not cover on their own. Walter was inherently soft-hearted by nature, and his only biological grandson Tyler represented his greatest sentimental weakness, the person he cared for more deeply than anyone else in the younger generation. Time and again, he would hand Linda the requested cash without stopping to cross-reference or verify the validity of any of the financial hardships she described in dramatic detail. 32-year-old Tyler embodied reckless, short-sighted consumerism with no coherent long-term career vision whatsoever. He quit every job he landed after a maximum of 8 months of employment, growing bored easily and refusing to stick to consistent schedules. He was obsessed with customized luxury pickup trucks and endless online shopping sprees that relied entirely on borrowed money, racking up $82,000 in high-interest unsecured online loans alongside an additional $31,000 in maxed-out revolving credit card balances. The premium pickup truck, he had financed with minimal down payment, crashed violently the previous winter due to reckless speeding, leaving him drowning under an overwhelming mountain of combined debt with no clear repayment strategy. Richard and Linda repeated the same rehearsed talking points to every family member, neighbor, and acquaintance they encountered. Walter's 2 residential properties and every cent of his accumulated savings rightfully belonged to Tyler alone, as he was the sole male descendant carrying the Bennett family surname into the next generation. Clara had listened to this identical line of reasoning dozens upon dozens of times at family events, yet she always remained silent and composed, refusing to argue publicly in front of other relatives. In most small Midwestern American towns like theirs, aging parents commonly split their accumulated assets evenly between all surviving children, yet every household faced its own unique set of circumstances and family dynamics. Walter had spoken privately and candidly to Clara about his carefully considered long-term asset plans on 3 separate occasions over the past year. He understood perfectly well that Richard lacked even basic financial self-control. Any large lump sum payment handed directly to him would be completely wasted within a matter of months on impulsive, unnecessary purchases. For that reason, he planned to establish a protected, regulated trust fund that released only small, fixed monthly stipends to Richard rather than one-time massive cash disbursements. He fully intended to leave his spacious primary ranch-style residence to Clara, recognizing the consistent, reliable care she had provided him without expectation of reward for half a decade. The second Clara stepped through Walter's front door that Saturday, an unsettling, unnatural atmosphere washed over her that immediately signaled something terrible had taken place in her absence. All framed family portraits, decades-old factory work memorabilia, and vintage holiday photographs that had lined the stone fireplace mantel for years had been violently torn down and stacked haphazardly, crumpled and unorganized, atop the solid wooden coffee table positioned in the center of the living room. Every single drawer built into the tall oak sideboard standing against the far wall hung wide open, with stacks of outdated tax forms, crumpled receipts, and miscellaneous loose paperwork scattered chaotically across the woven carpet covering the floor. "Dad, are you home?" Clara set her heavy grocery bags gently down upon the linoleum kitchen counter and called out his name twice, her voice echoing through the empty house. No verbal response came from any room within the home. A sharp surge of panic rose rapidly in her chest as she hurried down the short, narrow hallway leading straight to the master bedroom at the back of the house. The large closet door stood thrown wide open, and the heavy steel safe housed inside the space had its thick metal lock mangled, bent, and irreparably damaged by repeated strikes from a metal pry bar, its exterior surface covered in dozens of deep, jagged scrapes and dents left by the forced break-in. Clara knelt down onto the carpet and leaned forward to peer deep into the hollow cavity of the empty safe, her stomach sinking to the pit of her abdomen the instant she saw what was missing. The thick yellow manila folder clearly hand-labeled Walter Bennett's original last will and testament had vanished entirely without a trace. Both official county-recorded property deeds for his 2 homes, all large-denomination savings account certificates, and signed medical power of attorney documentation had also disappeared completely. Only outdated, irrelevant monthly utility bills and a handful of expired obsolete spare keys sat discarded at the very bottom of the empty metal cabinet. A powerful wave of dread and fear surged through her entire body, and she pulled her smartphone out of her purse immediately to dial Walter's personal cell phone number. The device rang 10 full times before automatically diverting to his pre-recorded voicemail greeting with no answer. She then dialed the landline telephone installed inside the house, yet the receiver sat untouched on its cradle with no pickup. Grabbing her set of car keys from the entryway hook, Clara rushed outside to her vehicle and drove slowly around the entirety of the residential neighborhood for 40 uninterrupted minutes, checking every location Walter visited on a regular weekly basis. She stopped by the casual burger diner he patronized every Friday morning for breakfast, the community senior center where he played weekly card games with friends, and the Riverside Small Park where he sat each afternoon to feed breadcrumbs to the local pigeon flock. His old, faded silver sedan was nowhere visible in any of these familiar spots, leaving her with 0 viable leads on his whereabouts. With no other options left to pursue, Clara dialed Richard's cell phone number. He picked up the call on the 3rd ring without delay. "What do you need right now?" Linda and I are over at the auto parts supply shop downtown picking out custom motorcycle upgrade parts for Tyler's new bike. Richard's lazy, unconcerned tone crackled through the phone speaker, layered over the loud background noise of Linda haggling aggressively with a store clerk over pricing. Someone used a pry bar to violently break open Dad's bedroom safe last night or today, stealing his original legal will and both official house deeds in the process. He is completely unaccounted for at this moment. His car is missing from the driveway, and he refuses to answer every single phone call I place to him. Clara forced her voice to remain steady and level despite the overwhelming anxiety climbing higher inside her with every passing second. A brief, painfully awkward silence hung suspended over the phone line for several beats before Linda's shrill, sharp voice cut Richard off mid-sentence and seized full control of the call entirely. Do not blow this minor household matter completely out of proportion and manufacture unnecessary panic for no reason. Walter drove himself all the way over to our residential place yesterday afternoon, carrying every single one of those legal documents with him, solely to sit down and discuss inheritance division plans with us face to face. That is all that occurred. Dad is an extremely cautious, meticulous man when it comes to all official legal paperwork of any kind. He would never, under any circumstance, transport every single vital property and estate document to your home without first notifying me and arranging for me to be present as well. That safe's lock was clearly damaged through violent forced entry with a metal tool. Who took a pry bar to that cabinet without his permission? Clara's tone turned cold and firm, refusing to accept their shallow, transparent excuse. Nobody pried anything open or damaged any property whatsoever. Dad voluntarily gave me the full numerical safe combination several weeks ago without being asked. Yesterday, we sat together at our dining room table and reviewed every bank account statement and property deed line by line, page by page. He has finally come around to understanding that the vast majority of all his accumulated assets rightfully ought to pass to Tyler, seeing as he is our family's only living grandson carrying the Bennett bloodline forward. Richard rushed to fabricate a hasty defensive explanation in an attempt to cover up the truth. Just last month, he explicitly and clearly told me on 3 separate occasions that he was deeply terrified Tyler would recklessly waste any large lump sum cash payment handed directly to him without oversight, which is why he intended to create a structured monthly disbursement trust instead of signing both houses over outright to him. What you are saying right now is an obvious, outright lie. Clara called out his inconsistent, contradictory statement without hesitation. Linda immediately shifted gears to deploy her standard emotional manipulation and moral guilt-tripping tactics against Clara. You are single with no children of your own to raise or provide for, so that large ranch house holds no real practical value for you whatsoever. Richard is the eldest male son of the family, and long-standing local town customs dictate that the primary family estate should always pass to the oldest male heir first. You only bring over bags of groceries once every 7 days and act as though you have sacrificed more than anyone else in this family. Meanwhile, my husband and I have scraped by hand to mouth to survive for decades with constant financial pressure weighing on us, while you hold a stable professional accountant position with comprehensive full health insurance coverage and absolutely zero personal debt of any kind. It is only fair and morally right that Walter provides substantial financial assistance to his grandson, so Tyler can finally pay off his mounting loans and purchase a proper family home of his own. I have no interest in engaging in a drawn-out moral argument about perceived fairness with you right now. I am only asking you one straightforward, critical question. Where exactly is our father located at this very moment? Clara refused to get pulled into their manufactured guilt trip narrative. He is resting and recovering in our spare guest bedroom upstairs, going through all those complicated financial documents for an entire full day, completely exhausted his mind and body. We will drive him safely back to his own house once we finish our shopping errands this afternoon. Do not drive over to our residential address and create a loud, disruptive public scene for all our neighboring households to witness and gossip about later, Richard said before abruptly hanging up the phone without waiting for any follow-up response from Clara. Clara chose not to call back and waste further time attempting to reason with them. She immediately dialed the local police department's non-emergency reporting hotline to formally file an official incident report documenting intentional property damage and the theft of irreplaceable legal estate documents. 20 minutes following her call, 2 uniformed patrol officers arrived at Walter's residence to conduct a full on-site investigation. They captured dozens of high-resolution photographs of the mangled, pried-apart safe lock and all scattered paperwork littering the bedroom floor, then sat down with Clara to record a complete, detailed written statement covering every relevant detail of the situation as it had unfolded that morning. Officer Carter retrieved his bound official field notebook and walked Clara step by step through the core foundational statutes of Ohio state inheritance and probate law. A legal last will that transfers ownership of real estate property to named beneficiaries required 2 separate neutral adult witnesses with no personal financial stake in the estate to be physically present at the exact moment of signing, paired with simultaneous official notary public acknowledgement on the same date the document was executed. Any hand-drafted informal paper signed solely in front of immediate blood family members with no independent outside witnesses carried virtually zero enforceable weight within a county probate courtroom. If Clara could gather sufficient credible evidence to prove Richard and Linda had deliberately isolated the 82-year-old Walter from his other family member and subjected him to hours of relentless emotional pressure and manipulative badgering to secure his signature on a new document, a presiding judge could fully void that contested paper under the well-established legal definition of undue influence. The officers strongly advised her to retain a licensed attorney specializing exclusively in estate and probate litigation at the earliest possible opportunity to begin building a comprehensive, airtight evidentiary case ahead of any potential court proceedings. Once the 2 responding officers finished documenting the scene and departed the property, Clara set about tidying all scattered loose paperwork strewn across the master bedroom floor. She draped a thick waterproof plastic sheet over the damaged safe lock to cover the exposed broken internal mechanism temporarily, and affixed a handwritten paper note to the front of the refrigerator, instructing Walter to dial her cell phone the instant he walked back through his front door. She remained waiting alone inside the quiet, empty house until 7:30 in the evening, when Walter's faded silver sedan finally rounded the street corner and pulled slowly into his residential driveway. Richard exited the passenger side of the vehicle first and stepped forward to physically assist Walter in climbing laboriously out of the car's seat. The elderly man's shoulders sagged forward heavily under an invisible weight of exhaustion, and the warm, gentle permanent smile he normally wore on his face had vanished entirely. Heavy, dark purple circles hung prominently beneath both of his eyes, clear visible proof of severe sleep deprivation and mental strain. He barely mustered the energy to lift one hand in a weak, fleeting wave the second he spotted Clara standing patiently waiting for him on the concrete front porch. Linda remained seated inside the car's passenger compartment the entire time, staring straight forward with a cold, unyielding, hostile glare fixed on her face and refusing to step foot outside the vehicle to exchange a single word. "I have been attempting to reach you nonstop all day long with endless phone calls. I was absolutely terrified some terrible accident or medical emergency had befallen you." Clara stepped forward instinctively with the intention of reaching out to gently grasp Walter's arm in comfort. Yet Richard quickly moved to position his body directly between the 2 of them and lightly pushed her outstretched hand away to block physical contact with his father. Allow him a moment of quiet space to recover from his exhaustion. "Yesterday, we spent 7 consecutive uninterrupted hours going over every single asset he owns line by line without sufficient rest breaks, and he is completely worn thin both mentally and physically." Richard raised his speaking volume intentionally so any nearby neighbors within earshot could clearly hear his words. "He has fully worked through and processed all his thoughts regarding how the entire family's accumulated wealth ought to be divided from this point forward." Walter slowly lifted his head to make eye contact with Clara, his voice thin, weak, and uncharacteristically shaky with none of the steady, firm resonance it normally carried during their conversations. "I signed a brand new printed document at their kitchen table yesterday afternoon. Linda drafted the full text herself using her personal home laptop printer. The paper states both of my residential houses and the overwhelming majority of all my accumulated savings accounts shall be transferred to Tyler as a sole exclusive property, with only a small fixed monthly living stipend reserved and allocated specifically for me to cover basic expenses for the remainder of my natural life. At the exact moment you placed your signature upon that printed draft document, were any neutral, unrelated outside witnesses present in the room alongside you, or a state-licensed professional notary public standing by to complete official notarization procedures on the spot. Prior to signing your name, did you send a digital or physical copy of the draft text over to Attorney Hale for him to fully review and offer legal feedback, just as you promised me repeatedly you would do before executing any new estate paperwork of any variety? Clara pressed him for critical, legally relevant details without skipping a single vital question. Walter glanced nervously and hesitantly sideways in Richard's direction before offering a quiet, muted response. Only Linda and Richard occupied the same room with me while I signed the paper. No other outside individuals were present at any point. Linda told me we could take care of completing the formal notary stamp at some vague later date whenever we had spare free time, so there was no urgent rush to handle the process the same day. That informal printed document carries zero legitimate legal standing or enforceable authority under the formal statutory probate laws established by the state of Ohio. Clara explained the hard legal reality to him plainly and without sugarcoating the facts. Any valid testamentary instrument transferring legal ownership of real estate property requires both disinterested adult witnesses and simultaneous same-day notarization as mandatory non-negotiable conditions. A paper executed exclusively in the private presence of your son and daughter-in-law will automatically be thrown out and deemed null and void by any sitting judge due to clear, provable undue influence over a vulnerable aging testator. Richard's facial complexion flushed bright crimson with unbridled anger the instant those words left Clara's mouth. Do not fill his mind with confusing, misleading legal jargon meant to manipulate his thinking against our family's best interests. That signature on that paper was given by his own voluntary free will with no coercion whatsoever. Tyler is drowning under a crushing mountain of unpaid consumer debt with nowhere to turn for relief, and all you care about selfishly is hoarding multiple residential properties you have no genuine need to occupy or utilize for anything meaningful. My sole concern and priority in this entire situation is protecting your right, as our father, to make fully informed, unpressured, autonomous financial choices regarding assets you spent 40 years building up through grueling manual labor, Clara replied in a calm, measured tone that did not match his raised, hostile volume. Before you requested he put pen to paper on that draft document, did you grant him permission to place a phone call to me to discuss the terms and receive a second perspective on the proposed asset split? Did you allow him the opportunity to sleep on the draft text overnight to deliberate on the decision with a clear, rested mind before demanding he sign immediately, or did you subject him to hours upon hours of repetitive badgering and emotional hardship until he surrendered just to end the exhausting conversation? Walter's lower lip trembled visibly as he stared down fixedly at the scuffed, worn leatherwork boots covering his feet, failing to offer a single word of rebuttal or explanation in response to her questions. Clara could vividly reconstruct the entire distressing scene that had unfolded inside Richard's kitchen the previous day without needing a detailed verbal recount. Linda continuously cycling through printed photographs of Tyler's totaled wrecked pickup truck, and page after page of overdue loan account statements, Richard mechanically repeating the identical phrase, "only grandson," every 10 minutes without pause, wearing down the 82-year-old man's mental stamina until he finally submitted to signing the unwanted draft merely to escape the endless cycle of guilt-inducing conversation. Clara deliberately softened her speaking tone and completely ignored Richard's hostile, confrontational glare to focus her full attention solely on Walter. I will drive you directly to Attorney Hale's professional law office first thing tomorrow morning without delay. 3 full years ago, you entrusted a complete duplicate original copy of your fully notarized official will into Margaret's safekeeping for emergency storage purposes. We will retrieve that properly executed legal document first, then draft an entirely brand new, 100% legally binding testament right there in the office with neutral independent witnesses on hand to oversee the entire signing process. Every single asset division term and condition will be determined solely by your personal wishes and preferences, with no outside party permitted to apply pressure or alter your decisions in any capacity. Richard shouted loud enough for his voice to echo all the way down the quiet residential street lined with neighboring homes. You cannot forcibly drag him to a lawyer's office to reverse and undo an agreement he has already willingly consented to and signed off on. If you continue to push this unnecessary conflict forward, we will initiate multi-year civil litigation against you and summon every distant extended relative to testify against your self-serving, greedy character, permanently ruining your positive reputation within our small, tight-knit town community. All courtroom judgments and rulings are grounded strictly upon official state-written legal statutes, not informal homemade printed drafts created inside a residential kitchen without legal oversight, Clara countered firmly. Once a judge reviews all the collected evidence and confirms beyond reasonable doubt that you and Linda subjected him to prolonged undue influence while illegally concealing his original properly executed will document, that unnotarized printout you pressured him to sign will hold absolutely no weight in a court of law whatsoever. I will not stand idly by and watch you manipulate and exploit him to drain every last cent of 40 years of hard-earned factory labor savings just to cover the reckless, avoidable consumer debts your son Tyler accumulated through years of impulsive overspending. Richard reached out to firmly grab Walter's upper arm and physically tug him forward toward the front entrance door of the house. We are taking him inside the residence to rest and recover his energy. This conversation terminates right here, right now, and you are ordered to refrain from interfering in our immediate small family's internal private affairs moving forward. The heavy solid wooden front door slammed shut with a loud resounding bang before locking automatically from the interior side, sealing Clara outside alone on the concrete porch. Cold autumn wind gusted through the neighborhood, sweeping piles of dry fallen maple leaves across the toes of her leather dress shoes. She pulled her smartphone back out of her purse to schedule an urgent early morning consultation appointment with Attorney Hale for the following day, fully and painfully aware that the prolonged, bitter battle over Walter's entire estate had only just officially begun, with countless tense confrontations and complicated legal hurdles still waiting ahead. Rain poured steadily and relentlessly throughout the early hours of Sunday morning. Clara arrived at Walter's residential address promptly at 8 o'clock sharp as planned. She had held a brief, concise phone consultation with Attorney Hale the previous night after returning home from the stressful Saturday confrontation, using their conversation to compile a comprehensive, itemized written list of all critical questions to ask Walter regarding every detail of the lengthy coercive session that had taken place inside Richard's home the day prior. She knocked firmly against the front door's wooden frame continuously for 5 full minutes before Walter sluggishly unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open a narrow crack to greet her. Merely a single night had separated their 2 meetings, yet Walter's mental and emotional state had deteriorated drastically in that short window of time. The bowl of warm oatmeal breakfast Clara had prepared for him and set out on the kitchen counter remained completely untouched and cold, proving he had lost all appetite from overwhelming mental distress. They seated themselves together at the dining table position beside the large front picture window as sheets of cold rain tapped and streaked across the glass panes nonstop, and Walter recounted every chronological detail of his grueling visit to Richard's household without omitting a single relevant moment or statement. From 1 o'clock in the afternoon all the way until 8 o'clock in the evening, they only granted Walter one single 10-minute break to step outside and purchase cheap fast food hamburgers for a rushed dinner bite. For the remaining 6 hours of the visit, Linda and Richard took turns surrounding his chair at the kitchen table to bombard him with repetitive, guilt-inducing talking points without pause. The tabletop was completely covered with thick stacks of Tyler's past-due loan paperwork, vehicle financing delinquency notices, and blank 4-bedroom residential rental application forms the young man had filled out but could never afford to submit with adequate down payment funds. Every solitary time Walter attempted to interject a suggestion that his assets be split equitably between both of his biological children, Linda would immediately burst into loud, theatrical crying fits designed to manufacture intense feelings of guilt within the elderly man by vividly describing their imagined extreme economic destitution and permanent ruin. Linda repeatedly told me that if the large primary ranch house remained assigned to you in any formal legal document, Tyler would never in his entire adult life be financially capable of purchasing a suitable residential property to settle down in for marriage and starting a family together. Richard constantly brought up outdated traditional eldest son inheritance customs from decades past, hammering the same talking point into my head over and over without mercy. After 7 straight hours of listening to identical complaints and emotional appeals on a non-stop loop, my mind grew exhausted and overwhelmed to the breaking point. I signed that printed paper draft solely to put an immediate end to the unrelenting cycle of repetitive argument and guilt-tripping conversation. Walter admitted in a quiet, defeated voice while staring down at the grain of the wooden tabletop beneath his folded hands. Clara carefully jotted every single word of his oral recounting down line by line inside her bound notebook, then shifted the subject of their discussion to Margaret, Walter's 78-year-old lifelong close friend and retired state-licensed professional notary public with decades of industry experience under her belt. Margaret maintained a locked, fireproof metal filing cabinet stored inside her own cottage residence that housed a complete, intact duplicate physical copy of Walter's fully witnessed, officially notarized original 2021 last will and testament document. That foundational estate paper had been personally drafted by Attorney Hale 3 years prior, with 2 separate neutral volunteer residents from their local church serving as official signing witnesses, and a valid state notary seal affixed to every page of the executed text. The core language within that original will explicitly establish a protected, regulated monthly disbursement trust fund intended exclusively for Richard's benefit, crafted specifically to eliminate the risk of him receiving one massive lump cash payout he would inevitably squander entirely within a matter of months through unplanned wasteful spending. Margaret has already agreed to accompany us to Attorney Hale's downtown law office this morning to provide formal witness testimony on your behalf if required for any future court proceedings. She has listened to you openly discuss your consistent long-standing concerns about Tyler's complete lack of responsible money management skills dozens of times over the past several years, and her written sworn witness statement will carry substantial, highly persuasive evidentiary weight before any probate court judge we may ultimately appear in front of. Walter nodded his head in full agreement with her proposal, and the two of them departed his home together by car, taking a brief detour en route to the downtown legal district to pick Margaret up from her small single-story cottage along the way. The elderly retired notary brought a heavy locked fireproof metal document box secured with a combination padlock along with her inside the vehicle. The container housing the fully intact original 2021 will complete with all original witness handwritten signatures, official embossed state notary steel stamp, and county legal document filing identification numbers fully preserved without damage or alteration of any kind. Attorney Hale's professional law offices occupied a quiet, unoccupied second-floor suite situated directly above the town's primary local community bank building, an area with minimal foot traffic and zero distracting background noise to interfere with confidential legal consultations. At 61 years of age, the attorney had accumulated a full 30 years of specialized professional practice focused exclusively on Ohio state estate planning, trust formation, and contested probate inheritance litigation disputes between feuding family members of all ages. He carefully spread both conflicting estate documents side by side across the polished, solid mahogany surface of his large, central work desk for comparative examination. The authenticated, fully compliant original 2021 will Margaret had safely preserved for Walter, and the blurry low-resolution smartphone photograph Clara had captured of the unregulated, unwitnessed and formal draft Linda had printed from her personal home laptop computer without any legal professional oversight whatsoever. We will begin our formal consultation by breaking down the severe legal deficiencies present within the informal printed draft Richard and Linda coerced you into signing last Saturday. Attorney Hale stated clearly as he tapped the edge of the printed photo lightly with the tip of his inked ballpoint pen for emphasis. Per the formal codified regulations laid out within Ohio Revised Code Title 2107 governing all testamentary instruments transferring legal title to real estate property, a legally valid, fully enforceable last will requires 2 separate disinterested adult witnesses with no personal financial interest in the estate to be physically present at the exact moment the testator executes their signature, paired with simultaneous official state, notary public acknowledgement completed on the identical calendar date of signing. This informal homemade draft document bears nothing more than Walter's solitary personal signature on the page, with 0 independent, third-party witness signatures attached, and no official notary stamp or embossed seal affixed anywhere within its text. From a strict legal perspective, This printed paper holds zero inherent evidentiary validity and cannot be recognized or enforced in any Ohio County probate courtroom under any set of circumstances. The attorney proceeded to break down and elaborate upon the 4 distinct core legal criteria judges across the state rely on to definitively prove the presence of undue influence over an aging, vulnerable testator during will execution. The primary legal defense strategy Clara would rely upon to fully invalidate the contested homemade draft if the dispute eventually advanced to formal civil trial proceedings. The 4 established benchmark factors for a successful undue influence claim were as follows. First, the alleged manipulators deliberately sought full unilateral control over the elderly individual's social circle and outside communications to isolate them from other family members with competing interests. Second, the bad actors subjected the testator to extended, repetitive, one-sided propaganda designed to implant only their own preferred viewpoint while refusing to entertain any alternative perspectives or counterarguments. Third, they consistently exploited the aging person's natural compassionate, soft-hearted disposition to manufacture intense feelings of guilt and obligation to comply with their financial demands. Fourth, the perpetrators intentionally concealed the existence of the proposed new document from other legal heirs and confined the signing process to a private closed room with no neutral outside observers present to record the full interaction objectively. The most secure, legally airtight course of action available to us at this present moment is to execute a brand new, fully notarized official last will right here inside my office today, with the entire signing procedure captured in high-definition permanent digital video recording for unalterable objective evidentiary storage. Simultaneously, we will revise and finalize all updated supplementary trust fund clauses to align precisely with your current asset division preferences, then submit a formal temporary restraining filing with the county real estate recorder's office to institute a legal freeze, blocking any unauthorized, secret private transfer of title to either of your 2 residential properties through backdoor channels without full written consent and official notarization from yourself. After listening patiently to Attorney Hale's complete comprehensive breakdown of all relevant state probate statutes and protective legal procedural steps available to safeguard his assets, Walter reached an immediate, definitive personal decision to move forward with the attorney's recommended plan of action without hesitation. He signed a formal, fully executed durable power of attorney legal document on the spot, granting Clara complete, unrestricted authority to handle every single estate-related administrative task, legal filing, and negotiation process on his behalf moving forward into the future. Margaret countersigned the official paper document immediately afterward in her capacity as a neutral, unbiased third-party witness for permanent official filing within the attorney's secured case record storage system. Once they finished all paperwork procedures inside the downtown law office, the 3 of them climbed back into Clara's vehicle and drove the short distance back to Walter's residential neighborhood. Upon rounding the corner approaching his driveway, they spotted Richard's family passenger vehicle parked directly out front of the house's front walkway, with Linda standing upright on the concrete porch clutching a thick, tall stack of printed loan delinquency statements and overdue billing paperwork tightly against her chest. The instant she laid eyes on the 3 individuals exiting the attorney's sedan together, she stepped forward rapidly to physically block their path of entry onto the property, deliberately raising her speaking volume to a loud, carrying pitch intended to draw the curious attention of every neighbor walking along the adjacent sidewalk within visual and auditory range of the confrontation. "You 3 have colluded together with an outside legal professional behind my husband's back to trick and manipulate Walter into altering his long-standing estate plans against his natural true wishes. What malicious, self-serving ulterior motive could you possibly be hiding from all of us?" Linda accused sharply in an accusatory, confrontational tone directed straight at Clara and Margaret. Margaret stepped forward 1 full pace ahead of Clara, her posture steady and unwavering, her voice calm yet firm with decades of professional notary experience, lending authoritative weight to every word she spoke. "I have worked as a licensed state notary public for more than 40 consecutive years, and I possess complete intimate knowledge of every single mandatory procedural requirement necessary to draft and execute a fully legally binding, enforceable last will under Ohio state statute. You and Richard confined Walter to a private closed kitchen room for 7 straight, uninterrupted hours last weekend to subject him to nonstop repetitive emotional badgering and guilt-tripping tactics before pressuring him to sign an unwitnessed, unnotarized informal printed draft document without a single neutral outside observer present. Every single action you took that day satisfies every legal benchmark required to establish a clear, provable claim of undue influence before a sitting probate judge, and you too will be the sole guaranteed losing party if this conflict progresses to formal civil trial litigation. Richard stepped alongside his wife, Linda, to place a protective arm across her shoulders and offer a verbal counterargument to Margaret's statement. Margaret is merely an outside, unrelated acquaintance of my father's with no legitimate right to meddle and insert herself into private internal sibling family financial disagreements between Clara and myself. That printed paper Walter signed at our kitchen table represented his fully voluntary, uncoerced personal choice regarding his own assets. I am no random outside irrelevant stranger to this family dynamic whatsoever, Margaret corrected him directly without pause. I have maintained an unbroken, close, decades-long friendship with Walter stretching back 50 full years, and he openly shared every detailed component of his long-planned asset division and trust fund framework with me 3 full years prior to this recent coercive incident at your residence. She reached into her crossbody handbag and retrieved a printed photocopy of the fully executed 2021 original notarized will to hold up for Richard and Linda to clearly view. This official legal document was personally drafted by a licensed estate attorney, signed in the physical presence of 2 separate neutral volunteer witnesses from our local church congregation, and sealed with a valid state notary embossed stamp on the day of execution. Its legal authority, weight, and enforceability completely dwarfed the negligible, unregulated homemade printout you pressured Walter to sign using emotional manipulation tactics inside your private kitchen with 0 legal professional oversight involved at any stage of the drafting or signing process. Recognizing she had no viable factual or legal grounds to sustain her argument against Margaret's comprehensive breakdown of the statutory requirements, Linda instantly abandoned all logical legal debate tactics and immediately activated her well-rehearsed performative victim routine, her eyes rapidly glistening with manufactured fake tears that streamed down her cheeks within seconds of shifting her tone to a trembling, sorrowful cadence. Our entire small household is truly trapped in an inescapable, desperate financial crisis with no viable path forward to resolve our mounting debt burden. If Tyler cannot secure immediate full repayment of all his outstanding loans, his personal credit rating will be permanently destroyed for decades to come, ruining every future professional and housing opportunity available to him in adult life. You maintain a secure, high-paying professional accounting career with 0 outstanding financial obligations weighing on your shoulders. Can you not find it within your heart to make one small, reasonable sacrifice for the sake of your own blood nephew's lifelong future stability? Making unilateral concessions that surrender our father's entire lifetime of hard-earned accumulated assets to resolve your son's self-created reckless consumer debt burden has never been, and will never be, any personal moral obligation of mine. Clara responded to her manufactured sob story with complete, unshaken composure and emotional neutrality. Both of those residential homes, and the full $40,000 in total cash savings Walter has amassed over 4 decades of grueling heavy factory assembly labor belong solely to him, granting him exclusive unilateral legal authority to dictate every single term of how his property and funds shall be distributed upon his passing without outside emotional blackmail or financial pressure of any kind. If you and Richard genuinely wish to resolve Tyler's self-inflicted, unpaid loan balances responsibly, the appropriate solution is for the 2 of you to seek out consistent long-term full-time employment positions with steady monthly income streams rather than dedicating all your energy and manipulation tactics to draining your 82-year-old father's limited retirement savings pool to cover your family's avoidable financial mismanagement errors. As more and more curious neighborhood residents pause their sidewalk walking routines to gather and observe the escalating public confrontation unfolding on Walter's front porch, Richard grew deeply embarrassed and ashamed of the negative attention their family conflict was attracting within their tight-knit small-town community. He roughly grabbed Linda by the wrist and pulled her forcefully toward their parked passenger vehicle, climbing into the driver's seat and peeling the car's tires against the asphalt driveway as they rapidly drove away from the property, shouting one final angry, threatening warning out the open vehicle window before vanishing down the street. This matter would never be considered fully resolved, and they intended to pursue every possible available legal avenue to secure what they falsely claimed was Tyler's rightful inherited portion of Walter's accumulated estate assets. Margaret stayed behind at Walter's residence for several additional hours following Richard and Linda's abrupt hostile departure to sit with him and offer emotional comfort and reassurance, easing the heavy mental weight of guilt and anxiety weighing on his shoulders from the traumatic coercive signing incident the prior weekend. She reiterated repeatedly that all formal, properly executed legal documents drafted and filed through Attorney Hale's law office would fully safeguard his authentic, long-standing asset distribution intentions against any future manipulative interference attempts from Richard and Linda moving forward into the future. Later that same afternoon, Walter completed the full official digital state remote notarization signing process through Ohio's authorized online legal document platform, with every single moment of the full execution procedure captured on permanent high-resolution digital video recording for objective, unalterable evidentiary preservation purposes. The text language embedded within this newly updated, fully notarized official will document contained explicit, unambiguous asset allocation instructions with no room for interpretive confusion or dispute. Walter's spacious primary ranch-style residential property was assigned exclusively to Clara as her sole individual, inherited asset upon his passing. The smaller secondary townhouse residence, plus the full $40,000 cash savings pool, were designated to be deposited entirely into a tiered, regulated protective trust fund account managed by a neutral third-party fiduciary administrator. The trust's formal written rules mandated fixed automatic monthly basic living expense stipend disbursements sent directly to Richard's personal bank account each calendar month without exception, while Tyler was only permitted to submit formal written application requests for limited small-scale special one-time fund disbursements solely to cover documented legitimate emergency medical treatment costs or accredited higher education tuition expenses. All formal language within the trust legal text permanently prohibited any request for large lump sum single withdrawal payouts of the principal trust balance at any point in time, establishing an ironclad legal barrier designed to eliminate the risk of immediate, complete, wasteful dissipation of the accumulated estate funds the instant they entered Richard or Tyler's personal possession. Clara had fully anticipated that completing the entire official legal document drafting, recording, and filing process through the licensed estate attorney's office would temporarily calm the ongoing family asset dispute conflict and create a window of peaceful reprieve for Walter, free from Linda and Richard's constant manipulative harassment tactics. However, she drastically underestimated the sheer depth of Linda's premeditated, calculating, scheming, and relentless willingness to manufacture false official legal accusations to shift public blame onto Clara as a malicious, unethical villain within the small-town community. At 10 o'clock in the evening that same day, Clara received an unexpected, unplanned incoming phone call originating from the local municipal police station non-emergency dispatch line. The responding police officer on the line informed her that Richard had personally arrived at the station earlier that night to submit a fully formal written police incident report, filing complete with signed sworn statements from both himself and Linda, leveling fabricated criminal allegations against Clara that she had illegally utilized threats, emotional coercion, and unfair manipulation tactics to pressure a vulnerable, confused elderly adult, Walter, into altering his original estate will documents against his genuine natural wishes, alongside a secondary false accusation that she had engaged in intentional illegal financial exploitation to wrongfully seize control of a senior citizen's accumulated valuable real estate and liquid cash assets for her own exclusive, personal financial gain. The formal written report officially requested the local police department launch a full formal criminal investigation into the baseless manufactured accusations Richard and Linda had sworn under penalty of perjury to be entirely factual and accurate in every claimed detail. Recognizing she had no viable factual or legal grounds to sustain her argument against Margaret's comprehensive breakdown of the statutory will requirements, Linda instantly abandoned all logical legal debate tactics and immediately activated her well-rehearsed performative victim routine. her eyes rapidly glistening with manufactured fake tears that streamed down her cheeks within seconds of shifting her tone to a trembling, sorrowful cadence. Our entire small household is truly trapped in an inescapable, desperate financial crisis with no viable path forward to resolve our mounting debt burden. If Tyler cannot secure immediate full repayment of all his outstanding loans, his personal credit rating will be permanently destroyed for decades to come, ruining every future professional and housing opportunity available to him in adult life. You maintain a secure, high-paying professional accounting career with zero outstanding financial obligations weighing on your shoulders. Can you not find it within your heart to make one small, reasonable sacrifice for the sake of your own blood nephew's lifelong future stability? Making unilateral concessions that surrender our father's entire lifetime of hard-earned accumulated assets to resolve your son's self-created reckless consumer debt burden has never been, and will never be, any personal moral obligation of mine. Clara responded to her manufactured sob story with complete, unshaken composure and emotional neutrality. Both of those residential homes, and the full $40,000 in total cash savings Walter has amassed over 4 decades of grueling heavy factory assembly labor belongs solely to him, granting him exclusive unilateral legal authority to dictate every single term of how his property and funds shall be distributed upon his passing without outside emotional blackmail or financial pressure of any kind. If you and Richard genuinely wish to resolve Tyler's self-inflicted, unpaid loan balances responsibly, the appropriate solution is for the two of you to seek out consistent long-term full-time employment positions with steady monthly income streams rather than dedicating all your energy and manipulation tactics to draining your 82-year-old father's limited retirement savings pool to cover your family's avoidable financial mismanagement errors. As more and more curious neighborhood residents pause their sidewalk walking routines to gather and observe the escalating public confrontation unfolding on Walter's front porch, Richard grew deeply embarrassed and ashamed of the negative attention their family conflict was attracting within their tight-knit small-town community. He roughly grabbed Linda by the wrist and pulled her forcefully toward their parked passenger vehicle, climbing into the driver's seat and peeling the car's tires against the asphalt driveway as they rapidly drove away from the property, shouting one final angry, threatening warning out the open vehicle window before vanishing down the street. This matter would never be considered fully resolved, and they intended to pursue every possible available legal avenue to secure what they falsely claimed was Tyler's rightful inherited portion of Walter's accumulated estate assets. Margaret stayed behind at Walter's residence for several additional hours following Richard and Linda's abrupt hostile departure to sit with him and offer emotional comfort and reassurance, easing the heavy mental weight of guilt and anxiety weighing on his shoulders from the traumatic coercive signing incident the prior weekend. She reiterated repeatedly that all formal, properly executed legal documents drafted and filed through Attorney Hale's law office would fully safeguard his authentic, long-standing asset distribution intentions against any future manipulative interference attempts from Richard and Linda moving forward into the future. Later that same afternoon, Walter completed the full official digital state remote notarization signing process through Ohio's authorized online legal document platform, with every single moment of the full execution procedure captured on permanent high-resolution digital video recording for objective, unalterable evidentiary preservation purposes. The text language embedded within this newly updated, fully notarized official will document contained explicit, unambiguous asset allocation instructions with no room for interpretive confusion or dispute. Walter's spacious primary ranch-style residential property was assigned exclusively to Clara as her sole individual, inherited asset upon his passing. The smaller secondary townhouse residence, plus the full $40,000 cash savings pool were designated to be deposited entirely into a tiered, regulated protective trust fund account managed by a neutral third-party fiduciary administrator. The trust's formal written rules mandated fixed automatic monthly basic living expense stipend disbursements sent directly to Richard's personal bank account each calendar month without exception, while Tyler was only permitted to submit formal written application requests for limited small-scale special one-time fund disbursements solely to cover documented legitimate emergency medical treatment costs or accredited higher education tuition expenses. all formal language within the trust's legal text permanently prohibited any request for large lump sum single withdrawal payouts of the principal trust balance at any point in time, establishing an ironclad legal barrier designed to eliminate the risk of immediate complete wasteful dissipation of the accumulated estate funds the instant they entered Richard or Tyler's personal possession. Clara had fully anticipated that completing the entire official legal document drafting, recording, and filing process through the licensed estate attorney's office would temporarily calm the ongoing family asset dispute conflict and create a window of peaceful reprieve for Walter free from Linda and Richard's constant manipulative harassment tactics. However, she drastically underestimated the sheer depth of Linda's premeditated calculating scheming and relentless willingness to manufacture false official legal accusations to shift public blame onto Clara as a malicious, unethical villain within the small-town community. At 10 o'clock in the evening that same day, Clara received an unexpected, unplanned incoming phone call originating from the local municipal police station non-emergency dispatch line. The responding police officer on the line informed her that Richard had personally arrived at the station earlier that night to submit a fully formal written police incident report filing complete with signed sworn statements from both himself and Linda, leveling fabricated criminal allegations against Clara that she had illegally utilized threats, emotional coercion, and unfair manipulation tactics to pressure a vulnerable, confused elderly adult, Walter, into altering his original estate will. Documents against his genuine natural wishes, alongside a secondary false accusation that she had engaged in intentional illegal financial exploitation to wrongfully seize control of a senior citizen's accumulated valuable real estate and liquid cash assets for her own exclusive, personal financial gain. The formal written report officially requested the local police department launch a full formal criminal investigation into the baseless manufactured accusations Richard and Linda had sworn under penalty of perjury to be entirely factual and accurate in every claimed detail. Clara responded to the minister's request for a private explanatory meeting by gathering a complete, organized, physical portfolio of all objective verifiable evidence documenting every chronological stage of the estate conflict timeline to present to the clergy member in full unredacted detail during their scheduled in-person church office consultation session. The comprehensive evidentiary portfolio she brought with her included high-resolution digital photographs capturing the violent pried-apart damage sustained to Walter's bedroom steel safe lock during the forced break-in theft of his original will document, the official printed municipal police department incident report containing full written witness statements and scene documentation from the responding patrol officers dispatched to Walter's residence the day the stolen legal papers were discovered, full unedited continuous digital video recordings captured during both the 2021 original will drafting signing session and the 2024 updated official notarized will execution meeting held inside Attorney Hale's law office. Margaret's fully signed sworn written witness testimony statement detailing Walter's consistent long-standing asset division planning conversations spanning multiple years prior to the coercive kitchen signing incident, 5 full consecutive years of organized, categorized physical receipts documenting every grocery, prescription medication, residential repair, and yard maintenance expense Clara had voluntarily covered entirely out of her own personal income during her weekly caretaking visits to Walter's home with zero financial reimbursement requested or received from the elderly man, plus the official printed municipal police incident report documenting Richard's disruptive public harassment disturbance staged inside Clara's accounting firm's commercial office lobby days prior. After reviewing every individual piece of tangible objective evidence contained within Clara's organized portfolio packet and listening to her complete chronological, unbiased verbal recounting of every sequential event leading up to the current contested estate litigation situation, the parish minister fully comprehended the comprehensive scope of Linda and Richard's coordinated intentional false rumor-spreading public relations campaign designed to manufacture one-sided community sympathy for their self-serving financial objectives while concealing their own legally questionable manipulative conduct toward Walter. The minister subsequently took proactive corrective action to reverse the widespread negative misinformation circulating throughout the church congregation and broader town community. delivering a formal public clarifying announcement during the following Sunday's weekly church worship service to lay out the basic objective factual framework of the Bennett family inheritance dispute without Linda's one-sided biased emotional framing, explicitly informing all attending parishioners that the circulating gossip painting Clara as a greedy, unfeeling villain contained numerous critical omitted factual details and outright falsehoods manufactured exclusively by Linda to manipulate public opinion in her immediate nuclear family's favor for financial gain. Upon witnessing the clear, measurable shift in the broader town community's public opinion balance away from her previously dominant sympathetic victim narrative following the minister's formal church-wide factual clarification announcement, Linda immediately abandoned her grocery store and church gossip-spreading strategy and pivoted to deploy an alternative targeted harassment tactic designed to isolate Walter from Clara's protective oversight and resume her private, one-sided manipulative brainwashing sessions without independent witness presence to document her coercive conduct objectively. She began deliberately scheduling extended, unmonitored solo private visits to Walter's residential home exclusively on weekday standard business hours when Clara was locked inside her downtown accounting firm office completing mandatory weekly client work obligations and unable to rush over to supervise their one-on-one conversations or cut her manipulative tirades short mid-sentence. During each unsupervised weekday private solo visit to Walter's house, Linda would remain seated on his living room sofa for a minimum continuous 2-hour uninterrupted stretch of time, delivering repetitive scripted persuasive talking points engineered to implant anxious doubt and internal conflict within the elderly man's mind regarding the asset allocation terms contained within the newly executed 2024 fully notarized official will and tiered protective trust fund legal documents drafted by Attorney Hale. Her core, repetitive persuasive talking points delivered during these solo unsupervised sessions included the following manipulative core claims repeated on a nonstop loop with minor emotional wording variations each visit. Once Clara gained full exclusive legal ownership of the primary ranch residence upon Walter's passing per the updated formal will's explicit asset assignment language, she would intentionally sever all regular scheduled in-person visitation access between Walter's only biological grandson Tyler and his aging grandfather permanently. Every single dollar Walter had labored 40 grueling factory years to accumulate through consistent manual labor would ultimately pass into the sole legal possession of a childless female heir with no direct male Bennett blood descendants to inherit the accumulated wealth long-term, effectively wasting an entire lifetime's worth of hard-earned financial resources on an outsider unrelated to the family's male bloodline after Clara's eventual death decades in the future. Tyler would be permanently locked out of any realistic opportunity to purchase his own standalone residential property suitable for hosting a wedding ceremony and raising a future young family unit together if the restrictive trust fund monthly disbursement rules remained legally unaltered in their current written form. Walter's inherent lifelong soft-hearted compassionate temperament made him uniquely vulnerable to Linda's calculated guilt-tripping psychological manipulation tactics deployed during these unsupervised weekday solo visits, leaving him trapped in an agonizing state of persistent internal mental conflict caught between two competing loyalties: gratitude toward Clara for 5 consecutive years of consistent, uncompensated weekly elder care provision with zero expectation of financial reward, and natural sentimental familial attachment to his sole biological grandson, Tyler, plus lingering paternal affection for his eldest son, Richard. Following multiple successive extended, unsupervised solo manipulation sessions orchestrated by Linda inside his private residence, without Clara present to provide counterbalancing factual perspective, Walter found himself overwhelmed with persistent internal mental distress and emotional turmoil, initiating multiple lengthy distraught phone calls to Clara's professional work cell phone number during standard office hours to vent his crippling indecision and overwhelming guilt stemming from Linda's repeated one-sided persuasive brainwashing talking points delivered in private isolation with no opposing viewpoint present to moderate her biased narrative framing. Clara scheduled an urgent after-hours private consultation phone call with Attorney Hale to discuss viable countermeasures to mitigate the ongoing risk of Linda's unsupervised private one-on-one manipulation sessions continuing to erode Walter's mental resolve to uphold the formal legal will and trust fund asset allocation, terms the two of them had mutually agreed upon and officially executed through the licensed estate attorney's office weeks prior. After hearing Clara's full detailed verbal recounting of Linda's consistent weekday solo private harassment sessions, filled with repetitive, guilt-tripping persuasive rhetoric targeting Walter's vulnerable elderly mental state, Attorney Hale recommended a straightforward, highly effective evidentiary mitigation strategy: purchase and install a complete set of discrete high-definition indoor digital surveillance camera recording systems with continuous built-in audio capture functionality hidden within inconspicuous, unnoticeable locations throughout Walter's living room and master bedroom interior spaces to fully record every word spoken and every physical action taken during all future unsupervised solo private visits from Linda or Richard inside the residential home without their advanced knowledge of the active permanent recording equipment operating throughout the house. The complete, uninterrupted audio-video footage captured by the hidden surveillance cameras would serve as irrefutable objective third-party, evidentiary documentation of every instance of coercive undue influence, emotional manipulation, and guilt-tripping rhetoric deployed against Walter by Linda during future, unsupervised private solo and home visits, fully admissible as unalterable objective visual and audio proof inside any county probate courtroom civil litigation proceeding of the estate. Inheritance dispute advanced to formal trial litigation down the line. That upcoming weekend, following Attorney Hale's strategic, evidentiary advice, Clara drove to the local town electronics retail supply store to purchase a full multi-camera hidden home surveillance recording kit complete with wireless remote digital storage, cloud backup functionality for permanent secure off-site footage preservation to prevent potential tampering or intentional deletion of recorded evidence by Richard or Linda if they ever discover the camera hardware hidden throughout Walter's house interior. She returned to Walter's residence Saturday afternoon following her weekly caretaking errand run to complete the full discrete surveillance camera installation process throughout the primary living areas of the house, carefully positioning each compact recording device inside subtle, unobtrusive hidden nooks and crannies around the living room bookshelf, master bedroom window curtain rod trim, and kitchen upper cabinet molding with zero visible exposed wiring or obvious hardware components that would immediately draw Linda's attention upon entering the residential home for future, unsupervised solo private weekday visits. The entire surveillance camera installation procedure was completed discreetly, without Walter's daily residential living comfort or normal household mobility routines disrupted in any measurable capacity by the newly mounted recording hardware concealed throughout his home interior spaces. Linda arrived at Walter's residential home for another extended, unsupervised solo private manipulation session on Wednesday afternoon of the following week. Completely unaware of the fully operational continuous audio-video hidden surveillance recording system capturing every single word of her 2-hour-long guilt-tripping persuasive monologue against Walter inside the living room space without pause or interruption of any kind throughout the full duration of her visit. Seated comfortably on Walter's fabric living room sofa across the coffee table from the elderly man for 2 consecutive, uninterrupted hours, Linda cycled repetitively through her full pre-planned catalog of manipulative persuasive talking points engineered to implant crippling internal doubt and guilt within Walter's mind regarding the formal asset allocation terms contained within the 2024 fully notarized official will and tiered protective trust fund legal documents drafted by Attorney Hale, speaking in a slow, deliberate, measured cadence designed to maximize emotional impact and prolonged mental distress upon the aging vulnerable testator with every individual sentence delivered during her extended solo private visit to the house. The core, repetitive, manipulative, rhetorical talking points Linda delivered on a non-stop looping cycle throughout the 2-hour unsupervised recorded solo visit included the following emotionally charged, biased arguments crafted exclusively to favor her immediate nuclear family's financial self-interest at Walter's personal asset expense. The restrictive tiered trust fund's permanent ban on large one-time lump sum principal cash disbursements would permanently lock Tyler out of any realistic long-term financial capacity to purchase a standalone residential property suitable for hosting a formal wedding ceremony and constructing a stable, young family household together with a future romantic partner. Walter's 4 decades of grueling manual factory labor, accumulated life savings, and 2 valuable residential real estate properties would eventually transfer into the exclusive permanent legal ownership of a childless female heir, Clara, upon his eventual passing, resulting in the complete permanent loss of all accumulated Bennett family material wealth assets to unrelated outside non-bloodline individuals decades down the line following Clara's own eventual death. Every local small-town resident within their tight-knit community would engage in unrelenting mocking gossip and harsh judgmental criticism of Walter's life choices for intentionally depriving his sole male blood grandson Tyler of his natural rightful inherited family estate assets out of unfair biased favoritism toward his daughter Clara during his final years of life. The complete, unedited, high-definition, continuous audio-video surveillance footage capturing every single word of Linda's 2-hour manipulative solo private tirade against Walter was automatically saved to the encrypted off-site cloud digital storage backup system linked to the surveillance camera hardware the instant Linda departed Walter's residential property following the conclusion of her extended, unsupervised weekday private visit that afternoon. Shortly after Linda's vehicle vanished down the street from the neighborhood, Walter voluntarily retrieved the encrypted digital surveillance footage file recording captured during her 2-hour solo manipulative visit from the camera system's local on-device storage drive and manually forwarded the complete, unedited audio-video clip file directly to Clara's personal smartphone via secure encrypted digital file transfer application so she could review the full objective recorded evidence of Linda's unrelenting private, guilt-tripping manipulation tactics deployed against him in her absence at her earliest available convenience following the conclusion of her daily professional accounting firm work shift that evening. Upon reviewing the complete, unedited 2-hour surveillance footage file Linda had left behind on Walter's living room sofa during her solo private weekday visit, Walter openly admitted to Clara during their follow-up phone conversation that the endless repetitive cycle of biased, manipulative, persuasive rhetoric Linda subjected him to during every unsupervised solo private in-home visit left him trapped in an unbearable state of persistent internal mental anguish and paralyzing indecision, torn between competing familial loyalties to his daughter Clara and his son Richard plus grandson Tyler simultaneously, with no clear unconflicted path forward to resolve the growing multi-week estate inheritance conflict peacefully without permanent rifts splitting the extended Bennett blood family apart irreparably. Clara delivered calm, patient, emotional reassurance to Walter over their follow-up evening phone call to alleviate the heavy burden of internal guilt weighing down his mind, clearly explaining in straightforward, plain-spoken language the core foundational protective purpose embedded within Attorney Hale's drafted tiered monthly disbursement trust fund legal framework. The permanent ban on large one-time lump sum principal cash withdrawal requests existed solely to eliminate the severe inherent risk of Richard and Tyler recklessly dissipating Walter's entire lifetime accumulated labor savings pool within a matter of months through impulsive, unplanned consumer overspending and unregulated high-interest loan borrowing activity. Not to intentionally cut Richard's immediate nuclear family off from all consistent, steady monthly financial support for basic household survival expenses indefinitely moving forward into the future. To create a structured, controlled compromise framework designed to minimize future, unsupervised, private, one-on-one manipulative solo visit opportunities for Linda to continue delivering her repetitive, guilt-tripping, persuasive tirades to Walter in Clara's complete absence. The two of them mutually agreed upon a formal, fixed, pre-scheduled visitation rule system for all future in-person contact between Richard's nuclear family unit and Walter inside his private residential home interior spaces. Every planned in-person visitation session involving Richard, Linda, or Tyler required advance 24-hour written text message notification submitted to Clara's personal cell phone number to lock in a mutually agreed-upon specific date and time window for the scheduled visit. with a mandatory non-negotiable rule stipulating Clara must be physically present inside Walter's residential home interior space for the full, uninterrupted, complete duration of every scheduled pre-planned family visitation session to provide neutral, objective, counterbalancing, factual perspective to moderate any potential manipulative, biased rhetoric Linda might attempt to deploy against Walter during supervised group family in-person gatherings moving forward into the future. Richard discovered the complete, discreet, hidden indoor audio-video surveillance camera recording system installed throughout Walter's living room and master bedroom interior spaces roughly 1 week following the formal fixed scheduled pre-notification visitation rule agreement established between Clara and Walter to curb Linda's unsupervised, solo, private, manipulative weekday in-home visits to the elderly man's residence, without Clara's neutral oversight present to moderate her biased persuasive rhetoric targeting Walter's vulnerable, aging mental state. Upon learning of the fully operational continuous hidden surveillance recording hardware capturing every word Linda spoke during all her previous unsupervised solo private weekday in-home manipulative visits with Walter inside the house without advance prior knowledge of the recording equipment's existence, Richard erupted into an explosive, unbridled fit of unregulated, uncontrollable rage and anger directed fully toward Clara for installing permanent, unannounced audio-video recording devices throughout his father's private residential home interior spaces to capture his wife Linda's private, unsupervised, one-on-one emotional manipulation sessions with the elderly testator without prior advance warning or written notification submitted to himself, or Linda outlining the permanent, continuous surveillance recording system operating throughout Walter's house interior. Fueled by intense, unmitigated anger and resentment stemming from the newly discovered hidden home surveillance recording equipment documenting his wife Linda's repeated, coercive, undue influence manipulation tactics deployed against Walter in private isolation without independent witness oversight, Richard immediately climbed into his family passenger vehicle and drove directly 30 minutes across town to the downtown commercial district location of Clara's professional accounting firm office, building to stage a loud, disruptive public disturbance inside the open ground floor client reception lobby space of the commercial office complex housing her accounting practice business during standard weekday core client service operating hours when multiple paying firm clients and front desk administrative support staff members were physically present inside the lobby area to witness his unregulated hostile outburst firsthand. Once arriving inside the accounting firm's public ground floor reception lobby space, Richard proceeded to shout repeated accusatory, hostile verbal statements directed at Clara at the top of a speaking volume for all nearby present firm staff and waiting paying clientele to clearly overhear, delivering a litany of harsh, critical character condemnations, labeling her as cold, suspicious, untrustworthy, unfeeling, and unethically invasive for secretly installing hidden continuous audio-video surveillance recording hardware throughout her own elderly father's private residential home interior spaces to monitor and record private, unsupervised, one-on-one family conversations between Walter and Linda without advance prior notification or written consent submitted to Richard and Linda prior to activating the permanent continuous recording system throughout the house's primary living areas. The firm's front desk administrative receptionist staff member assigned to manage all lobby client check-in procedures attempted multiple separate polite verbal de-escalation interventions to calm Richard's explosive hostile emotional outburst and persuade him to exit the commercial office lobby space quietly without further disruptive public scene creation, yet all repeated polite verbal de-escalation outreach attempts from the front desk receptionist staff fell upon completely unresponsive deaf ears as Richard refused to moderate his raised hostile shouting volume or voluntarily depart the firm's public client lobby area peacefully of his own accord. After exhausting every reasonable polite verbal de-escalation intervention option available to defuse Richard's disruptive public lobby disturbance without external third-party law enforcement intervention required, the front desk administrative receptionist staff member formally contacted the commercial office building's on-site contracted private security guard personnel via internal intercom phone line to dispatch uniformed security staff to the ground floor reception lobby space and intervene. To remove Richard from the office building premises if he persisted in creating a disruptive hostile public disturbance, interfering with the accounting firm's normal daily client service operational workflow inside the open lobby waiting area. 2 uniformed, contracted on-site commercial building private security guard personnel arrived at the accounting firm's lobby reception space within 5 minutes of the front desk receptionist's emergency intercom alert notification to intervene and formally issue a firm verbal warning directly to Richard outlining the commercial building's official written visitor conduct policy prohibiting loud, disruptive, hostile public disturbances inside tenant business lobby spaces during core daily operating hours, alongside a clear, explicit verbal notice that any repeated future uninvited, disruptive, hostile public outbursts staged by Richard inside the commercial office building's public lobby areas would result in immediate formal municipal local police department non-emergency dispatch to issue official civil public disturbance violation citations carrying mandatory monetary fine penalties per local town. Municipal public order ordinance statutes enforceable by local law enforcement officers upon verified repeat violation incidents documented by building security camera footage and staff witness written statements on site at the time of the disruptive conduct occurrence. Following receipt of the formal verbal public disturbance violation warning delivered directly to him by the 2 uniform on-site commercial building private security guard personnel stationed inside the accounting firm's lobby reception waiting area, Richard begrudgingly agreed to voluntarily exit the commercial office building premises without staging any additional disruptive hostile public outbursts inside the lobby space for the remainder of that standard weekday business operating shift. Yet he paused briefly at the main glass front entry door threshold of the accounting firm's lobby area before departing the building entirely to deliver one final unspoken hostile threatening warning directed at Clara for the benefit of the front desk receptionist staff and uniform building security guard personnel present within earshot to overhear clearly. He intended to immediately retain independent outside civilian litigation counsel to draft and submit formal written civil lawsuit legal filings against Clara requesting a county probate court judge issue an official binding judicial ruling fully voiding and invalidating the 2024 fully notarized updated official will and tiered protective trust fund legal documents Walter had executed alongside Clara inside Attorney Hale's law office weeks prior, with a corresponding formal legal demand that the judge reinstate full legal binding enforceability to the unwitnessed, unnotarized homemade, printed draft estate document Linda had pressured Walter into signing during the 7-hour coercive kitchen manipulation session back on the initial Saturday of the entire multi-week estate inheritance conflict timeline before the forced safe break-in theft of Walter's original 2021 fully executed notarized official will document. A small handful of calendar days following Richard's disruptive hostile public disturbance staged inside Clara's accounting firm's commercial office lobby waiting area and his verbal threat to initiate formal civil probate litigation contesting the validity of Walter's updated 2024 fully notarized official will and protective tiered trust fund legal documents drafted by Attorney Hale, Clara received a formal printed paper legal correspondence letter sent via certified tracked U.S. postal mail. Delivery originating from the independent civilian litigation counsel Richard had retained to represent his immediate nuclear family unit's contested estate inheritance dispute legal interests against Clara inside Ohio County Probate Court civil litigation proceedings moving forward into the future. The formal certified mailed legal correspondence letter functioned as an official pre-litigation demand notification confirming Richard's retained outside civilian litigation counsel had formally initiated full civil probate lawsuit drafting and filing preparation procedures to contest the legal enforceability of Walter's updated 2024 fully notarized official will and tiered protective trust fund asset allocation framework established through Attorney Hale's licensed estate law practice office. Weeks prior, with an official scheduled preliminary civil trial hearing date assigned by the local county probate court clerk's administrative staff 2 full calendar months following the date of the certified mailed pre-litigation demand letter's delivery to Clara's residential home mailing address, requiring Clara to allocate all available evening and weekend personal leisure hours throughout the subsequent 60-day pretrial preparation window to systematically organize, categorize, label, and formally submit comprehensive chronological organized evidentiary binders filled with all objective verifiable physical and digital proof materials documenting every sequential stage of the full multi-week estate inheritance conflict timeline for official permanent filing storage within the local county probate court clerk's secured civil case record storage system, well in advance of the scheduled preliminary civil trial hearing date assigned by the court administrative staff for the contested will litigation matter. Throughout the full 60-day pretrial evidence preparation window allocated between receipt of Richard's retained litigation counsel's certified mailed pre-litigation demand notification letter and the official scheduled preliminary county probate civil trial hearing date assigned by the court clerk's administrative staff, Clara dedicated every single available evening after completing her full standard 40-hour weekly accounting firm professional work shift, plus every uninterrupted block of free weekend personal leisure time exclusively to the comprehensive systematic collection, chronological sorting, formal labeling, and three-ring binder organizational binding of all objective verifiable physical and digital evidentiary materials relevant to every sequential chronological stage of the full multi-week contested estate inheritance conflict timeline originating with the initial forced violent break-in theft of Walter's original 2021 fully executed notarized official will document inside his bedroom steel safe storage cabinet, the opening Saturday of the entire extended family financial dispute. The complete comprehensive chronological evidentiary binder packet Clara compiled for official pretrial filing submission with the local county probate court clerk's secured civil case record storage system contained the following fully categorized, sequentially labeled objective verifiable physical and digital proof materials cross-referenced to corresponding dated sequential conflict timeline entries with clearly printed descriptive index tabs separating distinct evidence category groupings. 4. Effortless rapid judge and opposing counsel cross-examination reference during future formal civil trial hearing proceedings. High-resolution digital photographic image files capturing multiple, varied angle close-up shots of the violently pried apart mangled steel safe lock hardware damage sustained during the forced break-in theft of Walter's original 2021 fully executed, notarized official will document stored within the cabinet interior on the conflict's opening Saturday morning, alongside printed hard-copy paper reproductions of all timestamped digital photographic evidence image files complete with embedded camera capture date and time metadata printed directly onto each corresponding physical photo printout page for official court record filing authenticity verification purposes. Full original printed hard copy paper reproductions of the municipal local police department's official non-emergency incident report filed by Clara the day of the forced safe break-in. Discovery documenting the theft of irreplaceable legal estate documents and intentional property damage to Walter's bedroom steel safe storage cabinet hardware, paired with printed scanned digital copies of the responding patrol officer's handwritten on-site scene observation field notebook witness statement transcripts recorded during their initial Saturday morning on-site investigation visit to Walter's residential home, address hours, following Clara's discovery of the empty breech safe cabinet interior space, complete unedited continuous high-definition digital audio-video recording footage files captured during both the 2021 original fully witnessed and notarized official will drafting execution signing session, plus the subsequent 2024 updated revised fully notarized official will and tiered protective trust fund legal document signing consultation meeting held inside Attorney Hale's downtown licensed estate law practice office with physical printed hard copy written witness sworn summary transcripts typed verbatim from the unaltered full digital recording audio tracks attached as supplementary supporting written evidence materials, paired with each corresponding digital video files, printed timestamped screenshot, thumbnail index reference page for streamlined court review navigation purposes. Full unredacted complete, unedited continuous high-definition digital audio-video surveillance, recording footage, captured by the discrete hidden indoor camera hardware. Installed throughout Walter's living room and master bedroom interior spaces documenting all extended, unsupervised solo private weekday, in-home manipulative guilt-tripping persuasive tirade sessions, Linda conducted against Walter inside his residential home without Clara's neutral oversight present to provide counterbalancing objective factual perspective, with typed verbatim printed hard copy written transcript summaries extracted directly from each individual full unaltered surveillance audio. Video recording files sorted chronologically by capture date for easy sequential court timeline cross-referencing during formal trial evidentiary presentation segments. Fully signed sworn formal written witness testimony statement affidavit document handwritten and officially dated by Margaret Walters, 78-year-old retired licensed state notary public lifelong close friend and neutral third-party unbiased estate conflict observer, detailing every multi-year sequential conversation Walter had openly shared with her regarding his consistent long-standing asset division planning framework and core deep-seated financial management concerns surrounding Richard and Tyler's proven history of impulsive, unregulated, wasteful consumer overspending behavior that directly motivated his decision to establish a tiered monthly disbursement protective trust fund legal structure rather than drafting a simple, unrestricted lump-sum asset transfer estate will document with no built-in spending oversight safeguards in place to prevent immediate complete dissipation of his lifetime accumulated labor savings pool upon his eventual passing. Organized, chronological, categorized, physical, printed, hard copy receipt binder packet containing every single grocery store, prescription pharmacy, residential home repair contractor, and lawn maintenance service payment receipt document Clara had personally paid for entirely out of her own separate individual personal income stream during her 5 consecutive years of weekly uncompensated elder caretaking visits to Walter's residential home address with zero financial reimbursement requested or received from the elderly man at any stage throughout the 5-year care provision timeline, paired with corresponding comparative blank chronological financial record spreadsheets documenting the near total absence of comparable voluntary elder care expense, financial contribution, receipts originating from Richard's immediate nuclear family unit throughout that identical 5-year caretaking reference window to visually demonstrate the stark measurable disparity in relative consistent elder care provision effort and corresponding out-of-pocket financial expenditure burden borne by Clara versus Richard's household across the multi-year comparative reference timeline period. Fully printed hard copy, scanned digital reproduction of the parish church ministers, formal written post-rumor spreading factual clarification correction statement, delivered verbally to the entire congregation during the Sunday worship service following Linda's weeks-long targeted town community gossip campaign, painting Clara as a selfish, greedy villain figure. Attached alongside printed witness-written statements submitted by multiple neutral church congregation attendees present during the minister's formal public factual correction announcement verifying the complete verbal text of the minister's delivered clarifying address to cross-validate the accuracy of the printed written statement reproduction document, submitted as supplementary supporting court evidence material. Full original printed hard copy paper reproductions of the municipal local police department's official non-emergency incident report filed by the commercial office building contracted private security guard personnel documenting Richard's disruptive hostile public disturbance outburst staged inside Clara's accounting firm's ground floor client reception lobby. Waiting area during standard weekday core client service operating hours weeks prior, paired with printed scanned digital copies of the front desk administrative receptionist staff members' handwritten on-site incident observation witness statement transcript recorded immediately following Richard's voluntary escorted removal from the commercial office building premises by uniform contracted building security guard personnel following issuance of the formal public disturbance violation verbal warning outlining applicable local town municipal public order ordinance monetary fine penalties enforceable upon verified repeat disruptive conduct incidents documented via building security camera footage and staff witness written statements on site at the time of violation occurrence. Simultaneous to Clara's comprehensive 60-day pre-trial evidentiary binder packet compilation, and official county court filing preparation work throughout the 2-month pre-hearing timeline window. Linda dedicated all her available free personal leisure hours to gathering and assembling her own curated selective partial one-sided evidentiary materials packet exclusively designed to present a biased, incomplete, lopsided narrative framing Clara as an unfeeling, greedy, uncooperative antagonist figure inside the upcoming formal county probate civil trial hearing proceedings before the presiding judge assigned to oversee the contested will litigation case matter. Linda's self-curated selective partial evidentiary materials packet compiled for Richard's retained outside civilian litigation counsel's pretrial filing submission contained the following narrow, limited set of one-sided supporting proof documents, intentionally omitting all contradictory factual evidence detrimental to her immediate nuclear family's financial self-interested contested estate litigation objectives. Printed hard copy monthly payroll wage statement stubs extracted from Tyler's part-time, low-hour, irregular temporary employment position, documenting his minimal, inconsistent monthly take-home personal income stream to visually reinforce her rehearsed public narrative framing of their household's supposed perpetual crippling financial destitution, with zero mention of Tyler's accumulated hundreds of thousands of dollars in self-incurred high-interest online consumer loan and revolving credit card overdue debt balances generated through years of voluntary, reckless, unplanned overspending and frequent, unannounced full-time job abandonment cycles without stable, consistent long-term employment income streams established to service accumulated debt repayment obligations reliably month after calendar year. Thick stacked piles of printed hard copy overdue monthly billing statements and past due delinquency notification letters originating from every separate high-interest online consumer lending platform and revolving credit card financial institution Tyler had voluntarily opened borrowing accounts with over the preceding several years of his unregulated, impulsive consumer overspending cycle. Selectively presented out of full chronological debt accumulation context exclusively to visually amplify the emotional weight of their household's self-created, overwhelming unpaid debt burden before the presiding probate judge without accompanying contextual explanatory documentation detailing Tyler's voluntary, unplanned luxury vehicle purchase, constant, unregulated online retail shopping spree expenditures, and repeated premature full-time job resignations that single-handedly generated the entire massive cumulative overdue debt balance owed to multiple separate lending financial institutions across the multi-year borrowing timeline. Hand-signed, dated, written witness statement affidavits solicited from several local small-town neighborhood residents who had only ever received Linda's one-sided, biased, partial oral recounting of the multi-week estate inheritance conflict timeline without exposure to any objective contradictory physical or digital evidentiary materials documenting her own coercive manipulative conduct toward Walter during unsupervised solo private in-home visitation sessions with the elderly testator. Each solicited witness, sworn written statement affidavit crafted exclusively to reiterate Linda's rehearsed core public narrative framing of Clara as a wealthy, uncompromising, self-serving accountant hoarding unnecessary surplus residential real estate assets, while heartlessly refusing to make reasonable voluntary financial concessions to alleviate her elder brother's immediate nuclear family's manufactured crippling household debt crisis stemming entirely from Tyler's voluntary